Hi everybody, welcome to another class of Yeshiva Classroom, and basically we're here to explain, make clear, make beautiful the Jewish Bible, the 5 books of Moses. Basically, that is our Bible, and in that Jewish Bible, it tells us about the creation of the world. Only through the Jewish Bible does the world know it, right? In Genesis, the world was created, right? In a beginning, the heavens and the earth were created, and on the second day, or on that day, the Ruach Elokim, the Spirit of God, hovered over the face of the waters. It was looking for a people, a person who would come to realize that there is a God, and to make a covenant, to make a treaty, a covenant with that individual or group. And of course, we know that Abraham was the one who realized, rationalized through basic observation, realization of the surroundings around him, that there is a God, and man was created by God. Other peoples did have leadership that realized that there was a God, but they were unable to bring the rank and file into the teaching and live the lifestyle that the Torah or that God wanted to have mankind follow. That God wanted mankind to follow for him to live a happy, productive, and a life full of great accomplishments, because that's what he wants. He wants the body and soul of man to accomplish, live by the good deeds, so that he'll be happy in this world, and by so doing, earn a holiness, perfection mark for the soul world. S-O-U-L. We have a soul. You know, you say, well, what is life all about? Maybe when you're 20, you're 30, you're going to say, well, listen, I'll never reach 80 or 90, but you will reach it one day. Most of us will. But what do we look forward to after we receive the call that we have to go to the soul world, S-O-U-L, and this is a testing world. The Gentile prophet in the book of Numbers, Jewish Bible, we're only talking about the Jewish Bible, right? Other ideologies want to say that, Jewish Bible was up to this point, but now God gave us a new chart to follow, and no longer in existence your type of teaching. If God wanted to change the format in which the Jew is to occupy himself, he would have called a meeting, and he would directed us that it's no longer in effect. But God is not fickle. And look at in 23:19, right? God is not in Numbers 23:19. God is not fickle. He changes mind, and God is not a man, or nor is it a son of man. That's in the Jewish Bible, the book of Numbers. We only have one Bible that was divinely given for our forefathers who stood before Mount Sinai and experienced this revelation of God speaking the Ten Commandments, because they're only spoken of at that time. Did not write them down. They were not put into a tablet. But you know, when we have the Jewish people coming out of Sinai, originally having come from Egypt, right? Having come from Egypt, went into the desert of Shur, and then through the desert of Sin, and then through Sinai, where they were to receive the Torah, to serve God. God doesn't need any service, right? God doesn't need anyone to serve Him. He doesn't need that because He has everything. But we are to serve God by what? By doing the directives that we took upon ourselves and our posterity to live by. And that's how we serve God. We serve God like a father serves, is happy when a son, a child, is respectful and grows up morally. And that's how God wants the Jewish children to live by the commandments that they made with God through Abraham, through his Abraham, forefather of the Jewish people. And we are to live by those rules that were received at Sinai. And Abraham was the first one who came to the realization that there is a God, not the one that there were not others that came to a realization that there is God, but realized that he would teach his children and his posterity the ways of God. And if you look in Genesis, you have to write these books, you have to write these basic source information from the quotes that I give you, because, you know, just speaking to you without you doing any follow-up, you're not going to get anywhere. You know, that's a sort of adult education in America. We get tangential very easily over here. You have to get a pen and a piece of paper, right? And you write down Genesis chapter 18/19. Means chapter 18, verse 19. It says over there that what? That I know that Abraham will keep the covenant, and he will teach his children the ways of God, of charity and justice. Tzedakah, ways of life, charity, of giving oneself to the lifestyle that the Torah brings down. The lifestyle that the Torah brings down. And this is how we serve God. When we see, and when He sees, when He realizes, when we all realize that it is our service that counts. And that service is only through the keeping of the commandments and the directives that God has given the Jewish people, which the Jewish people have agreed to live by. We made that covenant. Oh, you say, well, I didn't make that covenant. Well, but the point is, you're looking, write it down. Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 13. 29, verse 13. That I made that covenant with those that are standing here with me. God is speaking. I made this covenant with God who is standing, with the people who are standing with me now, and their children, those that are not here, right? and that talks about the future posterity, that we're held responsible. And it's so unfortunate that the Jewish people have not followed these commitments, these directives, which we said we would do, And no matter how much we have suffered in exile, there will always be a remnant, and if we have peace and posterity, we will that remnant will increase to a large remnant, a large majority. So, where do we stand? Here we are, in chapter 29 in Deuteronomy. There's a very important chapters, and 29 and 30. The Jews went away, and 29, and they will be for devouring. In chapter 31:17, God will hide His face when even a small percentage of Jews go away. We're all responsible for one another. God will take care of the hidden thoughts, and man, it's his responsibility to point out the transgressions of the fellow Jews, and they should come about and themselves and come back to the teachings of the forefathers. Now, there are a group of Jews that realize that this is a paramount purpose of our lives, to be away and live ghettoized, so to speak, to live a style of a Jew and not be influenced by the Gentile society, and therefore they dress in a different fashion. They live amongst themselves. They learn constantly, and they send their schools where the children to the schools where the emphasis is on practicing Torah and the fear of God, all of God's creation, and that's the onset of education, is to have a fear and awe of God, beginning of wisdom, beginning of knowledge, beginning of wisdom is the fear of God, the awe of God. And that's why we see, percentage-wise, even though they do not have the funds to accrue the best teachers for their children, nevertheless, the beginning years are of awe and fear of God. Beginning of wisdom is the fear of God, and we can just look around us and we see that the creation of food, what a wonderful miracle that is, where the sun shines on plants producing sugars and fruits, starches, where then when ripe, man can ingest them and eat them and grow. And man has a system where he can get those minerals and vitamins and what have you from the fruit and the meats, so that the blood system of man will carry those chemicals, those minerals, those vitamins to each particular cell, to each and every individual cell in the body, from the hair, the eyes, and what have you. And the blood transportation system, which goes throughout the entire body, contacts each cell and what have you. It takes in the necessary ingredients for that cell to exist. Now, the cell in the brain is not going to take in calcium, or the cells in the earlobe are not going to take in calcium, because they will be calcified hard and you won't be able to sleep at night. Or the brain, if it's calcified, you have a stone, which means death. So God and His infinite wisdom, and we take it for granted, our bodies are able to use the materials that was originally from the sun, the water, and what have you in the ground. Go figure. But we take it for granted. And we have to realize that's from God. And once we are aware that there is a God, then we will do what He wants us to do, the directives, the commandments, and we will live by them, aware that there's a God. And that's why we come to the synagogue every day, and we pray that God should grant us peace and prosperity, and recount all the miracles that He did for us, giving of the Ten Commandments, the plagues against our enemies, the Egyptian enemies, and all the enemies throughout that have hated us and pursued us. And we thank Him for all the miracles that He did, and giving us the commandments, and giving us light, and giving us an environment that is so beneficial and making us so happy. Once we're aware, and we constantly go over these charges of awareness of God, so that we realize that there is a God, and do what He says. As a matter of fact, Bechina, on Shabbos, which is a contemplating of God's phenomenon. Look, here's a peanut. I don't know, a lot of people don't know how peanut grows, but it grows under the ground, has a brittle shell. Dirt can get into this shell very easily, and it'll be mixed up with the nut inside. But God, the non-observant want to call it Mother Nature, a meaningless term, God saw in the wisdom that He should put a tissue around the peanut, so that when we eat the peanut, we have a clean nut, because the tissue in front stopped any foreign materials from going into the nut. Now, did that evolve? I mean, evolutionists say, well, it happened over many, many billions of years, right? The tissue surrounding the nut in the peanut, which grows in the ground, evolved after billions of years. Go believe it. Go believe that. It's better to believe, even to believe that the moon is made of cheese. It's yellow. But you can go on, and that's what we do on the Shabbos, that we are to go on and on to take things and examine them, the wine, the candles, rapid oxidation of the paraffin, and the wick produces a flame, fire, take for granted. So that's what the Haredi, or black-hatted observant, very serious about the religion, about Judaism, live by. And that's why we pray, and we go to synagogue and acknowledge that God did so much for the Jewish people, and all those commandments, all those miracles that happened to us, and the splitting of the Sea of Reeds. The Jewish people walked right on through, and then the waters came down on the Egyptians when they tried to pursue. Our enemies tried to pursue us. So we thank God, we recall those events and thank Him for having saved our people so many times, and as a result, we become really aware that there is a God and do the commandments so that we can accrue holiness points. You know, the soul is a part of man, and in the book of Koheleth, which is the Jewish Bible, right? In chapter 12, verse 7, it says, the soul will return to God who originally gave it. The soul of man will return to God who originally made it. Each person has a soul, S-O-U-L, and we don't realize it. You know, today people take for granted that life is due us. You know, our parents give us food, and it's their responsibility. We don't give thanks to parents and realize that the greatness of how they took care of us. And even if they didn't do a thing, they gave us life, and therefore one of the Ten Commandments is that you should honor your father. First comes father and then mother. Why? Because the father, you have a less tendency to honor. You should honor your father and your mother, and you will receive a long life. And that long life is the next world. I mean, do Gentiles not know that honoring parents is a good deed? Yes, of course, and they do honor their parents, many of them. But by the Jew acknowledging not only because it's a good deed to honor parents, but because he's commanded, and therefore following that precept, he accrues holiness points. He accrues holiness points. And that's the name of the game. This is a testing world. Many places in the Bible does it say testing, right? In Exodus chapter 16:4. I will give him an omer a head. He who gathered more did not have many. He who gathered much did not have many. He who gathered much did not have many. It's talking about the manna, that on that day you were to pick up only enough for that day. An omer, a certain amount per head of each person. And that's what they did collect. And if they collected more, at the end of the day, he did not have much because it rotted. Except before the Shabbat, he is to gather a double portion. And it did not bred worms at the end. It did not bred worms at the end. It was not wormy, this manna that he collected, because he was to use that for the Sabbath. Double portion on Friday. And that's what it says in chapter 16. It says that you should bake and cook before the Shabbos so that you can eat on the Sabbath. We don't do any baking and cooking on the Sabbath. And that's why the commandment says that we should bake and cook on the day before so that we will have what to eat on the Sabbath, because we're not to bake or cook on the Sabbath. Read it in chapter 16. In chapter 16. So what we're reading, we're doing chapter 29 in Deuteronomy, and after that it begins chapter 30, and it talks about how a person saw the changes in his life and vicissitudes, and how he was brought to different opportunities and different challenges that continuously faced him, and he had no idea where they came from, and how they attached themselves to him. But after a while, he realized that it must be from God, and therefore he came to that realization that there is a God, and he returns, and like we all can return, teshuvah, return to the teachings and the followings of our forefathers who were given the Torah, to live by it, to have a happy life through it. How so? Torah gives us peace of mind in our belief, happiness, because we know that there's a God, and that God gave us these directives in Torah from Sinai for our fathers, who taught it to us. 3 million stood there. It makes sense. So we shall return, and we have this wonderful belief and peace of mind that we know where we're going, and the enjoying the holidays, Sabbath, which is so frequent, and the other holidays when we go to Jerusalem 3 times a year. These are all happy times. The laws of marriage, right? Laws of marriage, which gives us peace of mind between spouses. So all these teachings are for our benefit, to give us happiness, self-control, happiness. We know what we can do, what we can't do. A basic cornerstone of Judaism, self-control. So that gives us happiness. So if you follow 30 in chapter 30 in Deuteronomy,